Today, our viewer question is about nutritional yeast, and they would just like to know what your thoughts are on it.
The glories of nutritional yeast. I'm a big nutritional yeast fan. I could spend a lot of time talking about it, but there are some big pluses and a little bit A minus that people need to be aware of. So here's the nutritional yeast story. We're talking about a common yeast, Saccharomyces cerevisiae, and it is the same yeast that ferments sugar into alcohol, and so it is used in breweries to make beer. It is brewer's yeast. To make beer, you take usually barley, soak it in water. The barley plant tends to sprout and start releasing the sugars that are stored in the barley starch. That sugar solution is full of sugars, maltose, fructose, sucrose, glucose. And you throw the yeast in there and it ferments many of those sugars into alcohol, and that's how beer is made. In that fermentation process, the yeast grow gloriously, and you wind up with these large accumulations of the yeast plant or yeast organism. In the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, and 50s, because the yeast from the brewery was so rich in B vitamins, they would sell it as a health food. And people would take little cakes of brewer's yeast and swallow them down. It tasted dreadful. It tastes like the inside of a brewery. It's bitter and beery flavored. And for that reason, back in the 1960s and 70s, some people said, well, let's see if we can create a product using the same yeast, but without all the beery aftertaste. And so they, instead of growing the yeast on a solution of barley malt, they grow it on a dilute solution of molasses, and the yeast doesn't ferment the molasses sugar into alcohol, but the yeast sure grows into these wonderful yellow billowy clouds, which are skimmed off and dried and powdered. And this is what's sold in the health food store as nutritional yeast. Same organism, just never saw the inside of a brewery. And it's a very versatile cooking agent. I love the flavor of it. It's a cheesy, slightly nutty kind of flavor. My chef friends do all sorts of wonderful sauces and gravies and dustings, and you can sprinkle it onto salads. I just put some of my vegetable soup. It's a wonderful, versatile ingredient. And it is definitely full of vitamin, the entire B spectrum, with the exception of vitamin B12, that all-important B vitamin that complete plant eaters, the vegans, have to get somewhere because we're not drinking out of streams anymore. We're not getting the natural B12 from the natural world any longer. Some enterprising folks who make certain brands of nutritional yeast have added vitamin B12 to some of their yeast products. And some people use this as their main vitamin B12 source. Some vegans, that's what they use, and that's fine. About 3 times a week, I believe 1 tablespoon of common B12 fortified nutritional yeast has 6 micrograms of B12, which is all anyone needs for every couple of days. 6 to 10 micrograms. The truth is many people use much more than that, 50, 100, 500 micrograms or more. But the minimum is around 6 or 8 micrograms, depending how much you absorb. Now, basically, they're saying if you use it as an everyday ingredient and you took a couple of teaspoons in it, as time went on, you certainly keep your B12 stores topped up. So it can be used as a B12 source. One caveat is, however, don't rely on it as your only B12 source. What if at the health food store, the guy wasn't looking and he mixed the bins there, and this one is, you happen to get the unfortified one? You don't want to bet your nervous system on one product only. So you should have several different sources of B12. There's fortified soy milk, there's drops, there's various things you can get for vitamin B12 source. But yes, some nutritional yeast is fortified with vitamin B12. Finally, most everybody does great with the nutritional yeast. But there are some reports that some people with bad inflammatory bowel disease, with ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease, there's something in the structural glycans of nutritional yeast that apparently in some people can really set off an aggressive attack of Crohn's or colitis. So if there's any question, if you are struggling to get Crohn's or colitis under control, you're probably one of those few people who should not be consuming nutritional yeast. Stay tuned. We'll keep you apprised of that one. But other than that, yay for nutritional yeast. It's a wonderful vitamin-rich ingredient that adds a lot of fun to plant-based dishes. So thanks for that question. Hope the answer was useful. Hi, everyone. Dr. Michael Klaper here, announcing our new format for our Q&A with Dr. K. Each day, Annie Hagen will be asking me one question that's been sent in by our viewers. So if you want to see if your question is getting answered, do join us for our daily Q&A with Dr. K right here. Hope to see you then.